Alright, so let's just start right away. We're like 16 minutes late anyway. Okay, so the goals for today, we're going to review the object-oriented programming concepts. We're going to learn how to use Git and GitHub. And if there's time left after the class, or like if you finish like before 9:15 or something, I'll talk about if-else statements and while and for loops. But first, before I move on, I would like to since I attended last week's campus and I've been seeing programs, right? You guys are making good progress, but the thing that I'm seeing mainly is the syntax, the structure formatting, right? So you want to format your code. You want to use you want to use indentation, right? You want to make your code look clean and professional. So if that's what the purpose of those open and closed parentheses are, right? So it helps you like know where the basically block of code starts, right? So if you have two methods in a class, right, and they're each block codes, you want to align those stuff. You want to make your code look clean and representable, right? So if I come here inside my Eclipse project, right, here I show you guys a sample, right? This is all out of the place. This looks messy. It looks hard to read. It looks unorganized. It looks unprofessional. If I were to upload this code to GitHub and then I have colleagues looking at my code, they're gonna complain to me. They're gonna ask me like, "What the hell is this?" They won't be able to read it that clearly. So it's very important you guys format your code. So um, if you want to format your code right after you're done coding, you could simply once again just right click source and hit format, and it will automatically do everything for you. But you also want to be consistent, right? You want, like, if you create a class, you want all your variables declared in the top. So see, I have a variable down here. You wouldn't want this down here. So make sure you declare everything, the variables and initialize variables on top. Then you could have your methods. So don't always format your code after. Just do it from the beginning when you're coding. So if I were to like, let's say if I were to start from the beginning, right, I would hit tab, right? That's basically one indent, and I would label my variables, right? I would label string, like something like that. Then I would have a method, right? Uh, and I could just do anything. So you want it to be as much, look professional and clean as possible. You don't want to have your method start from here, right? You want it to be lined up. You want it to be lined up with this. So I have another method. Right. So you see, you want these things to line up. So basically, um, you you're gonna tab it out and then make it look presentable, right? So basically, this public class, right? You see this bracket. It's lined up with the public class right here, right? Usually people have their quotation like this or they have it like that, right? So it lines it up, but it's better if you leave it like this. So this is lining up with this. You see this block of code, right? This close bracket curly brace is lining up where this open curly brace started with. So you got to be consistent. Make your code look clean. So that was like my only remark from last week. Okay, so let's move on. Um, let's talk about object-oriented programming concepts. So if I were to ask all of you guys, can you guys give me your rankings on the difficult stuff? Like one being the most difficult, which concept would be the hardest for you guys? Was the hardest for you guys to understand? And then four is the easiest. So just write down the chat and type in your rankings. So Syed said encapsulation was the hardest. Okay. Hopefully by the end of tonight's mentoring, it will be clear and crisp. Anyone else? Anyone else are struggling with OOP concepts? Any concepts? Polymorphism, encapsulation, inheritance is very easy. So yeah, so we'll go over polymorphism encapsulations. I'm surprised no one has said abstraction yet. So abstraction is pretty clear for you guys, or abstraction is okay? Okay. Yeah, in my opinion, I would say when I was mentoring this, abstraction was the hardest to uh, talk about and teach about. But if I were to rank it from hardest to easiest, I would say abstraction is first. Then I would say polymorphism is second, and then third and fourth, it doesn't matter. Inheritance and encapsulation, those are pretty simple to me. But we'll talk about all of them today. Okay, so first let's start off with inheritance. Okay, so what do you guys know about inheritance so far? So I want you guys to I want to see if you guys know anything about inheritance. Yeah, this is being recorded. So inheritance, it uses the extends keyword, right? Right. It acquires traits of another class, right? You can access that the classes like variables, methods, right? Subclass inherits all, exactly, right? So you guys know your stuff, but what are the different types of inheritance, right? So types of inheritance, right? There's single, multi-level, right? And hierarchical. I hate this word. I can't pronounce it for my life. Hierarchical. I spelled it wrong. How did I spell it? Oh, it's with the. Okay. So these are the hierarchical. Yeah, that sounds weird to say. Hierarch hierarchical. Okay. So these are the types of inheritance, right? So you have single, multi-level, and hierarchical, right? Okay. So I'm gonna ask you guys, right? So if I have, let's say I have class A, class B, class C, and class D, right? And these classes all have their own methods and variables defined, right? So they all have these. The dot is basically variables and methods, right, for that specific class. Okay, so now we have four different classes, right? So let's give an example of a single inheritance. So would this be a single inheritance right here? What about this? Is that a single inheritance? No, right? So single inheritance is basically one class. It's basically one class extending from another class, right? Just it's like a one-to-one inheritance, right? So let's talk about multi-level, right? Is this an example of multi-level? Yes or no? This isn't multi-level, right? What kind of inheritance is this? This is not multi-level. This is called multiple inheritance, right? So you see here that class C is extending from class C and D. So it's extending from multiple classes. Hence, it's called multiple inheritance, right? But I talked about multiple inheritance, right? Mr. Mafi, I talked about multiple inheritance Um, is multiple inheritance allowed in Java? Yes or no? The answer is no, right? You cannot inherit classes, multiple classes. Can you inherit multiple interfaces? Yes or no? Yeah. So that's the difference between classes and interfaces. One difference is that you could inherit multiple interfaces, but you can't inherit multiple classes. All right. So let's see class. Okay. So class C extends A, right? And then I have class B extends class C. Is that a multi-level example? All right. So if you guys ever um that's this is this is an example of multi-level, right? So you see that class B extends class C, and then class C extends class A. So would class B have the traits as the same? Would it have the traits of class A? Yes or no? It should, right? Since class C extends class A, and then here class B is extending class C, in theory, class B should have all the traits of class A. It's almost like a transitive property, right? If if A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, right? So it should contain like the same properties. Now let's talk about hierarchical. So what is hierarchical, right? Hierarchical, whenever you think of that word, just think of something like a family tree or something, right? Or like you know the or like the pyramids, right? I don't know. It reminds me of the pyramids. You know how the pyramid, you have something from the top and then it gets fatter as you go down. It almost looks like that, right? So you have class A, right? So you have class A. Let's say that class A is your superclass, right? So class B extends class A. Class C extends class A, and then we have class D extends class A. So is that a hierarchical inheritance? That is hierarchical inheritance, right? Because your A is your superclass, and you have all these subclasses that are inheriting from A. So if you were to like, let me just open up this PowerPoint real quick. Cancel. Cancel. So if I were to go to my animal thing right here. So this is basically a hierarchical class, right? So here was basically my class A, and these are my class B, C, and D, right? But they're all extended from class A. This is an example of a hierarchical inheritance. Here you have animals, and then you have all these types of animals, right? But they all inherit from this class. Okay. Once again, if you would like to get access to this PowerPoint, it's in the Dropbox mentoring folder. All right, so that's basically it. If that this is what basically inheritance is, right? You have just like writing folder structure, uh, almost not. It's I don't want to like. I'm not sure about that, so I'm not gonna comment on that because I don't want to confuse anyone. But it's inheritance is pretty simple though, right? So everyone here understands inheritance. So if I were to, do you guys want me to look at a program and you guys want to see an example? Yes or no? So I'm getting some mixed opinions. So once I see yes, I'm automatically gonna show you guys an example. Okay, so let me just hide this. Say yes. Okay, so let me just create a new package. I'm gonna call it inheritance. It's gonna be quick. I'm not gonna waste that much time in inheritance. I want to spend more time on the hardest ones, basically polymorphism and abstraction and encapsulation, right? Okay, so I'm gonna create a class. I'm gonna have a main class. That's where I'm gonna run the main method. Okay, so now let's create let's show an example, right? So I'm gonna create a class, and I'm gonna call this class basically you know, should I use the dad example? Like, I feel like that's very easy, but it's been used in the weekends. I'm just gonna use the animal example again. All right. Okay, so here I have an animal class, right? In this animal class, I could put whatever I want. I could say string name. I could say string type. I think let me say string name, right? String name, uh, int number of legs, right? So it's pretty simple, right? I just have two variables. I could create a constructor of this. This is basically, what kind of constructor is this again? I'm quickly giving you guys a trivia. A default, right? Okay, good. And let me just create some getters and setters, right? So if I'm creating getter, do I need a return type? Yes. So public string get. And if I'm setting something, I don't need any return type. And let me just create another method, right? Let me just say um, eats, right? Create parameter name. Public void. Oh yeah, I'm missing something. Yeah, so I'm missing string name right here. Okay, so for my get method, I'm returning a name, right? So that's why I have a string type. And for the set method, I'm setting the name to whatever is passed in this argument. So if they put like, Johnny, I would say whatever object that is, I'll give that name Johnny. And here I just have a concrete method, a regular method. I just called it eats, right? It basically prints out this animal eats, right? Okay, so I have this basic class, right? Animal. Okay, so now I want to create a new class, and I'm gonna call this let's call it a reptile. Okay, so I want this class to inherit the animals classes, you know uh, stuff, right? The methods and variables. So if I want reptile to inherit from animal class, what do I have to use? So I'd have to inherit it, right? So how do I inherit a class? To inherit a class, you use extends. And what am I extending it from? I want to extend from animal. So now that I extended from animal, right? Um, this when I create an object of this class, it'll have the properties of this class animal and this class reptile. Right. So now I can define reptile to whatever I want. So I could say string scales, right? So it's like the color of the scales or whatever, or like what kind of scales it is. Um, Boolean, I could say something. Okay, let me just make one variable, right? And now I could have my own method here. So I'm gonna, since reptiles, they're like, what do reptiles eat? They eat like insects, right? So I'll just have an insects method right here. Right. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you put in. I just want you guys to know that if I were to create an object, so now if I create an object, a reptile, and I could say reptile equals. So you can see here, once again, I did not create a constructor here, right? Do you guys see any constructor here? No, right? But if I were to create an object, when you create an object of a class that has no constructor, you call on the default constructor. So this is basically the default constructor. Um, but you don't see a default constructor here. But the thing is, if you don't have a default constructor in your class or any constructor in your class, the default constructor is automatically called when you create an object. So now I have a reptile object. Now you see you see the eats method in animal, right? So can my reptile object have access to this method? It should, right? Because we're extending it from animals class. So since we're giving it this extends, it allows us to access whatever is inside this class as well. So you can see it right here. If I press dot, you could see that it has the eats method, and it will show you it's coming from animal class. It shows you the animal variables, right? Number of legs, and then it also shows the variable from reptile class. So that's an example of inheritance, right? What type of inheritance did I use here? Single, right? So let me just create another class real quick, and I'm gonna call it snake, right? So I want a snake to inherit. What snake is a type of reptile, right? So I wanted to inherit the reptile class. So what would I put here? Would I extend it from animal or would I extend it from reptile? Let's see what happens if I were to extend it from animal, right? If I were to extend it from animal, um, I would only have access to these stuff right here. And you could see that, you know, yeah, it would basically turn into a hierarchical, it would turn into a hierarchical, it would, type, right? So even though the names might get you confused, right? It's still the correct inheritance I'm using, right? So since reptile extends animal and snake extends animal, this is an example of hierarchical type, right? But the thing is, we wanted to get the reptile traits, so we're just gonna say reptile. Now we could I could create a variable, right? I could say string guys or something. And I could just create another method, something like his, right? Okay, so now if I were to go back to the main method, and if I were to create a snake object, so and if I say rattlesnake dot, you can see that I have access to my snake variable, which eyes, right? I also have access to animals classes variables, name and number, and I also have access to reptile classes stuff. So I basically have access to reptile, animal, and snake. So how do I have access to all of those classes? I have access to all of those classes because snake extends reptile, so it would have these stuff. And if you go into reptile class, it would have that reptile class's methods and variables. But you see here, reptile class extends animal as well. So it was basically like a transitive property, right? This is basically multi-level. This is a multi-level inheritance, and then reptile extends from animal. So that was multi-level. So now let's talk about a hierarchical level, right? So let's say I create another type and I say mammals. And I want to declare, right? Boolean is warm-blooded, right? Equals true. And I could have another method called reproduce. Okay, so here I define my mammal class, right? But I want my mammal class to inherit an animal class, not a reptile or a snake class. So what would I do? I would say extends animals. All right. So now you see here, I have a total of 4 classes besides the main class, and you see that I have a reptile class that extends animal, and I have a mammals class that extends animal, right? So this is an example of a hierarchical inheritance. So does that make sense? So you guys understand what hierarchical inheritance is. So a superclass can have as many subclasses as it wants. All right. And now let me see if multi-inheritance works, right? It shouldn't, right? So this is what you get in array. This is what you'll get. So if you want to see multiple inheritance, you basically say, um, so let me say this doesn't extend animals yet. So let me say the reptile class, it extends animal and it extends mammals. So you get an error here, right? It says syntax error, insert class body to complete class declaration, right? So you're getting an error here. You can't inherit from multiple classes. But if animals and mammals were interfaces, then this would have been allowed. Oops. Okay, so let me just close all. So everyone understands inheritance, right? All right. So now let's move on to the second concept. All right. So what's the next concept you guys want to talk about? Let's save abstraction for last since it's longer. So polymorphism or encapsulation, which one? Encapsulation, encapsulation. Okay, so it's like a tie. So okay, I'm just gonna do encapsulation right now. Actually, we just went over inheritance, so it's better if we talk about polymorphism, right? Since we just talked about inheritance. Okay, so life's not fair sometimes, right? All right, so let's talk about polymorphism. Um, Polymorphism. What does it mean? Um, what does poly mean, right? Many, and forms means morphism means shapes, right? So if you take it together, it means many shapes. But when we're talking about Java, we're basically saying Java can, you know, it can take in like, have many forms of many styles. Okay, I'm stuttering right here. I'm sorry. Okay, so let me the main two main things do you need to know about polymorphism, right? Well, three things. First of all, is that it's Java has a method can take in many forms, right? It can be done in many forms, and the rest of the two is how can you use polymorphism in Java, right? So we have two ways to use polymorphism in Java, right? So what are these two things, right? So can you guys give me the names? Two examples of polymorphism in Java, right? That's basically an interview question, and then you say those two types of polymorphism. So you have overloading and overriding, right? Let me say method overloading, and then you have method overriding. And it's very important to know which one happens on what time, right? So does method overloading, does it happen on runtime or compile time? So method overloading happens in compile time. So it's very important to know that. And what about method overloading? Overloading happens in runtime. Okay. So now let's talk about the examples, right? So let's say I have a class, right? Let's say I have a class and it has methods, right? So the the example that Mr. Mafi gave was very good. So I'm gonna use an example similar to that. So I'm assuming since most of us here are like Asian and brown, right? We probably dealt with math somewhere in our lives, right? So everyone knows, everyone should know math, right? If you're doing Java, you should know at least basic math. Stereotype, I'm sorry. But, you know, the thing is, when you think of the, let's say, when we think of the word area, right? That word, the word area in math, it could be used in many things, right? It could be used for a square, it could be used for a rectangle, it could be used for a triangle, right? But the thing is, they each have their own way of defining area. So for a square, how would you define area? You would square it, right? Basically, so you would take one side of the square, and you would basically square it, and you would get the area. What about a rectangle? How would you find the area of a rectangle? It would be length times width, right? What about a triangle? It would be 1/2 base times height. Length, length plus. Are you sure? I hope I'm not wrong. Then I need to go back to college and stuff. I I'm pretty sure. Wait. Okay, you're scaring me right now. I want to know what's the area of a rectangle. Please be length times width. Okay, thank God. All right. So you guys understand what I'm trying to say, right? So you could have the word area. It could, have different meanings depending on what what the context is, right? So in Java, that's what method overloading is, right? So you could have the same method, but depending on the arguments or the parameters, it'll do that. It'll do the function based on what stuff you're passing in the arguments. So let's go back to my notes. Okay, so let's say I have a. I'm gonna show it in. Actually, let me just do it in Eclipse. So I'm gonna create a new package called polymorphism. All right. So now I'm gonna create a main class as usual, and let me create an example class. Right. So I want to call this class called area. Okay. So now the purpose of this class is to calculate the area, right? So let's say I have a method, right? Since I'm giving a result, right? I'm giving a calculation back, so I need a return type. So I'm going to use, I could use integer, but let me use double to make it, fair and stuff, better. Okay, so I specified it in the return type, and now let me give it the name. I would say, okay, so now I'm gonna have a method called calc area, right? So now let's say we want to do this for a square. So if you want to calculate the area of a square, you only need to take one of the sides, right? And then you basically take the square root of. I mean, you times it. You square it by, yeah. You square it basically, right? So what would I have to put inside the arguments? Do I have to put in four? Do I have to put in four doubles, or can I put two, or can I put one? I could just pass in I could just pass in one argument, right? Since a square has all equal sides, right? I just need to get one of its side and then just square it. So I could say double uh num, right? And then I can make an answer, yeah, double answer equals num times num, right? That's basically squaring. And then I'll return the answer. So here I have a method that calculates the area of a square, right? So you would pass in a number. So if your square, if one of the side, if the side of your square was like 5, it would return 25 as the answer. So uh that would be the answer of your thing. So let me just system that out this as well, since I don't want to use it in the main method. So I'd say the area of your square square is, and I'm going to say answer. So you would, once again, you would always want to system that out. If you do system that out in your methods, you want to do it before you return your answer. If you were to do it after you return your answer, you would get an error because once you return your answer, it doesn't know where the answer variable is coming from. So once here you said answer equals number time number, and then you returned it, but now it's gonna be like, where the hell did answer go? It's because you returned it. So that's why you want to do it before you return it. Okay, so that's basically, it calculates the area of a square. What about a rectangle, right? So what kind of parameters would I need here? I would need in, do I need in 2, 3, 4, how many, right? So if I'm dealing with the rectangle, I need 2. So I could say double length, double width, right? And I could do the same thing, double answer equals length times width, right? And then I return answer. So let me just create a system that out. The area. Okay, so you guys see it, right? Even though this is the same method name, it takes in a different parameter. This takes in 2 parameters, and this takes in 1 parameter. This one here, it calculates the area of a square, and this one right here calculates the area of a rectangle. And I'll just have one more, right? And let's do this one on triangle. So area of a triangle is, oh yeah, right triangle, right? You gotta be specific. Okay. So how do you calculate the area of a right triangle? Um, length times width times height, right? So wait, which one? What kind of triangles is the 1/2 base times height? I forgot. Wasn't that on right triangle? Uh, okay, whichever one uses the 1/2 base times height, that's what I'm gonna use. All right. So here's that tricky part, right? So you want to hit. You're fine because it squares. It's like a square cut in half. All right. All right. So you see here that here's the tricky part. So when we want to calculate a triangle, right? So what's the equation? It's 1/2 base times height, right? So in our parameters, what can we only put in our parameters? We could only put base and height, right? You guys agree? But then you see the problem here, right? So if I just say base double height, you guys see the problem here now, right? What's the issue? The issue is saying that I already have another method that takes in both a double parameter, right? So I would need to include something in this parameter. So um, I could just say double uh, double half, right? And then I could just declare half to be equals 1/2 inside the method, right? But they could declare whatever they want, but we're gonna change it to 1/2. So that's what's very important when you're you doing method overloading. You want to use different arguments. So we could create. Okay, so let's assume they have to put 1/2 here, right, to make this work, and then we're just gonna say so 1/2, right, and then we're gonna return the answer. So once again, you could just say, as Moses said, you could put 0.5 because you don't care what they put in half. If they put like 30, it doesn't matter. But we're adding that parameter in to make it different than this. So here we hard coded it to be half, right? 0.5, and it'll return the area of a triangle. So now let's call this, right? So now how does Java know that which method we're using? Once again, what is method overloading? Does it happen on compile time or runtime? Compile, right? So basically, when you code, if you guys remember the Java lifecycle, right? So we have the code first, right? And then it's turned. Then it's what happens with that code? We turn it into byte codes, right? How do we turn it into byte codes? By what? Compiler, right? So that's the time where this method overloading stuff happens. So that's why you need to understand it. And by runtime, I'm not sure. I don't want to give you guys the wrong information, so you guys can look it up later. I don't want to look it up right now and waste time, but I'm pretty sure runtime is basically as soon as you start the program, like the very beginning. That's what I think. Oh, runtime is as soon as your code is done. Oh, okay. So that makes more sense. All right. So for runtime, don't listen to me. Look online and to be sure. But for compiler time, you guys know that it happens during that time. Okay. So now let's create an example, right? So first, in order to use these methods here, I will need to create an object of this class, right? And then I could access those methods. So here I created an object called obj. So now let's say I want to calculate the area of a square, right? If I want to calculate the area of a square, I just need to use this one, right? That takes in one argument. So I could just say 5. If I want to calculate the area of a triangle, which one do I have to use? Do I have to use this one, double length, double width, or double base, double height, and double half? I'd have to use this one, right? To find the area of a triangle. So then I just say, let's say 15. And I could say 5.5 for height. And then remember, it doesn't matter what we put in half because inside our code we hard coded 0.5 and we don't even use the half value. So I could just put in half if I want to. It doesn't matter. But you could put anything. It doesn't matter. It will still give you half times base times height. And now let's say I want to calculate the area of a rectangle. Which one would I use? I would obviously use this one, right? Length and the width one. So I could say 12. I could say 4.3 for this one. Let's just run it. And now here it calculates the area, right? So how does it know which one to calculate? Even though we have the same name, we have the same name for all these methods. They're the same name, but the Java knows which one to call by knowing what you're passing in the arguments. So if you're passing in one argument, that's a double, right? If you're passing in a double, I could create another. I could create another say int num this out, right? This is just for example purposes. Okay. So you see here. Okay. Oh yeah, I need to add return statement. Return num. Okay. So you see here that even though these are the same names and they both take in this a single parameter, I was able to create this. Why? Because this is a different type. Integer is a different data type than double. Hence why I'm allowed to create a method like this. But if it was the same type and it was the same amount, you wouldn't be yeah, if it was the same variable type, you wouldn't be allowed to create it. So like how would obj know which one to call? If I want to use, if it would say right here which parameter is taking it. So this one takes in an int, this one takes in a double. So that's what basically method overloading is. You have the methods have the same names, but depending on the parameters, uh, you know, that's what's gonna call it. Depends on the arguments. OBJ would call the force. Oh God, I just realized what you meant. Thing is, I never watched a Star Wars movie, but I've seen all the references and the memes to know. All right, so everyone knows method overloading now, right? So is method overloading doesn't make sense for everyone now. So it's basically when you have the same method name, but Java knows which method to call depending on the parameter that you or argument you pass in. So that's what method overloading is, right? So let me just write it down here. All right. So that's what method overloading is. Now what about method overriding, right? So method overriding, it happens in runtime, obviously, right? So what is method overriding? So let's say we go back to our inter interface class, right? Oh, I deleted my interface class. Okay, so I gotta create a new class. So let me just say, let me say my area, right? Or Fahim's area. Okay, so now I want to, I create a class called Fahim's area, and I want to use the area functions, right? So I'm basically gonna rewrite all the area stuff. But what's the purpose of rewriting when I can just inherit it, right? So that's one purpose of inheriting is, right? So you don't need to, you could reuse the code, right? Easier to reuse the code. So instead of me writing all these methods again, instead of copying and pasting it, I could just simply say extends area. So now I have access to those methods. But now let's say you know I don't let's say I want to that's not how I define a square, right? I'm an idiot, right? Let's say Fahim's an idiot. That's not how he calculates the area of the square. He calculates the area of square by adding all sides, right? He doesn't believe in I mean he doesn't believe in like, uh he basically thinks perimeter is same thing as calculating area. So he wants to but he thinks of it as an area, right? He thinks of it calculating the area. So Fahim has his own method, right? So he's gonna take the same method, right? Public double calc area double num. Okay, so you see this is the same method signature as the one inside this class, right? It's the same method signature. But the thing that would be different, right? If you're overriding your method, that means you're gonna change the what it does. So as I said again, Fahim has his own mind. He likes to think differently. He doesn't think of calculating area by just like scoring the number. He thinks that it's just adding, right? But that's actually finding the perimeter. But oh well, right? So let's say he takes in uh, double answer, and he's a num plus num plus num plus num, right? So this is how he defines it. So let me just system out this. So this is how he defines his method of calculating area, right? That takes in one argument. So in this class, these are both these are both the same method signatures, right? Public double calc area double num, right? And then if you go to Fahim's area, it says public double calc area double num. So these basically have the same method signature, but what's the different thing about these methods? If I were to ask you guys what's the difference between these two methods right here, what would you guys say? One basically, they basically have their own logic, right? They have their own algorithm, they have their own method body. So here it basically does num times num and then returns, and its system dials a different thing, right? Here it does num plus num plus num plus num. So they're two different methods, but they have the same method signature. But in this class, I overrid that method, right? So now if I were to create a Fahim's area object, right? And I say fh dot, and if I were to say calculate area, right? If I were to use this right here, do you see calculate area double num from area class? You don't see it, right? Do you guys see it? You guys only see Fahim's area from the calculator double num. Then you have the int num and the double length, double width, and double base, double height, double half, right? Where where is this method from this class? The thing is you don't see it because we created a Fahim's area object, and inside this object we overrode that method, and that method is right here. So if I were to put 5, right? I mean 5, right? Um, what should it print out? You guys know what should it print out if I put in 5? So this is an object from this class, right? If I go in this class, this is my method, and I'm using this method. So if I take in a number parameter, right, and I say it's num plus num plus num plus num, and I'm returning that, it should print out 20, right? But here in area class, if you were to put in a number, it basically does number times number, and it would print out 25, right? So, but if I do it here, what should it print out? Should it print out 20 or would it print out 25? They're both the same method. They both take in the same argument. So it should print 20. Okay, it's printing out blah. Did I call in the right one? Yeah, I called in the wrong one. So I gotta say this one right here. I called on this one accidentally. Okay, so now you guys see what the problem issue is here, right? Right? Do you guys see the issue? It's supposed to print out 20, but it's saying blah. Do you see what issue I just got dealt with right here? So this is good to know, right? So now, if you were to look here, I clicked on this, right? Double num, but there's also another method that says calc area, and it takes in a single argument. But this takes in an integer and this takes in a double. So when I click on this and I just say 5, that's basically an integer, right? But it will since I'm inheriting from this class first, it would call on this class single method first. So what do I have to do? I have to put 5.0. Since the one that I'm using, it takes in a double, right? Fahim's area, this one is a double, right? So I'd have to say 5.0. And then it'll say the area of a square is 20.0. So does that make sense now? All right, so that was a good problem to see. All right, so is over does overriding make sense now? You're gonna see more about overriding in abstraction. You'll see it again in an abstraction. When it comes to abstraction, you'll see method overriding again. Okay, so now let's move to, what was it? What do we move to now? We move to encapsulation, right? Okay, so let me just describe what method overriding is. Basically, this is an example. This isn't the real. All right, so that's an example. Sorry, I didn't say anything. Okay, so now let's move on to what was the encapsulation, right? Okay, so what is encapsulation? Can you guys give me a short description of encapsulation? Basically, two words: data hiding, right? So that's what encapsulation is. Now the question is, how do you hide data, right? It's by simply making them private. That's it. That's what basically data encapsulation is, right? But the thing is, if you make your data private, right? How would you be able to get get that data, right? So let me show you an example right now. So I'm gonna create another package. I'm gonna call this encapsulation. So inside this, I'm gonna create a new class called main. I'm gonna create a new class called Fahim, right? Okay. So inside this class, I'm gonna have some data, right? So I'm gonna have something like double height, and I'll just say, actually, I'll make a string, right? And then I could also have something like double weight, like something like that, right? I could also have string ethnicity. Let me just me just call this person. I'm gonna change it up. Hold up. I'm gonna refactor this. So when you want to change something, right? Like you want to change the name of class, it's best to just right click and refactor and just to update references. So now it would automatically change everything of Fahim to person. So it change this and the class name as well. So just change it to person, right? So now I don't need to initialize anything. So I could just create constructors for it. String ethnicity name, right? Okay. And let me just have another one. Eye color, right? Okay, so I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 variables, right? And now let's say I want to create my constructor. So let me just, okay. So I have 2 constructors here. I have a basic, I have a default constructor for person, and then I have a constructor for that takes in all the variables and it sets it to whatever, right? So now let's say let's say I just have it like this, right? And now I go to my main class and let me create a person object. So I'm gonna call this person Fahim equals new person, right? And now let's say I want to give this Fahim object let's give him the ethnicity Bengali, right? So I would say Fahim dot ethnicity equals Bengali, right? So basically I can touch that class's I could play around with that class's variable and stuff, right? But the thing is, normally you don't want someone else to, touch your belongings, right? You don't want them to touch your valuables and stuff. So that's what basically data is to a class, right? You want your data to be, uh, not like seen to the public. You don't want them to modify. You don't want them to touch anything, right? You only want them to touch it through methods. So that's why this is not this is not good, right? This is looked down upon in coding, especially in Java, but it's looked down in almost all types of coding languages and stuff. So how do we solve this issue? So first of all, we don't want our data to be public to everyone. So right now it's public to this class, right? So we see here we have access to these variables. How do I how can I make it so it's not accessible? So what do? I go back to that person class, right? And I just make them all private. Okay, so now we all made them all private, right? So now let's just save it and see if we can access it, right? So do you see any variables here now? You don't, right? But the thing is now, how would you want to get access to those variables, or you want to define those variables? So that's the purpose of getters and setters, and that's why Mr. Mahibai didn't teach it in week 1, because he wanted to introduce it in encapsulation. But I started teaching from week 1 without knowing about this. So I'm kind of glad I taught you guys about this week 1. So now it should be easier to understand what getters and setters are, right? So that's what the primary purpose of getters and setters are. They're, they allow you to get an object's uh, data information, right? So how do we create a getters and setters? Let's create a getter and setter for one variable, and then we will learn how to generate it, right? So let's let's create a get method, right? So if we're getting the value of a variable, right? If our method is getting something, are we going to have a return type? So is a return type needed when you're trying to get something, right? So you so if I were to get Fahim's height, what is it gonna give back to me? Is it gonna give back me the height? It should, right? But what data type is that height? The height is string. So that is a return type. So we're gonna say public string. And here, what should the name of these methods be, right? So here you see it's called height. A variable is called height. So we would say get. But the thing is, in Java convention, the Java language convention, you wouldn't say get height like this, right? You would capitalize um, the first letter after the first word, every other after the first word, right? So here it's height, so we're gonna say get height, right? Are we gonna need anything inside our parameters? If we're getting some value, are we going to need to give that method anything in the argument? Thing is, no, we don't need to give it anything inside we don't need to put anything in the argument. We just want to get this value of height here, right? So what we're gonna do, we're not gonna have anything in the argument, and we're just simply gonna return height. So you see this height is colored blue, right? Here it's colored blue as well. So this is basically saying it's gonna return your your instance variable. So this is gonna return height. That's simple, right? You don't need anything inside the argument. How about when when we want to set the height? So we're obviously going to have public. Are we going to use a return type? So if we're setting something, is it going to give us something back? No, right? So we're going to use void. And the naming convention should be the same as well. So since we're setting something, I'm going to say set, and then we're going to capitalize height. And what about inside the thing? So if what about inside the arguments? Do we need anything inside the argument? So if you're setting something, right? And let's say I'm setting name. So what am I setting that name to? Where is that value coming from, right? So that value is going to come from the argument. So that's why you're going to need a string height here. And then you're going to say this height, which is basically referring to your this instance field right here. And you're going to assign it to this value that's passed in the argument. That's it. So now we created a getter and setter for one of these variables. But now we have to do the same for 4 more variables. Once again, if you guys are still new to coding, I would suggest that you guys write down your getter and setter like by yourself. But if you're like, you already know these stuff and you don't want to waste time, just simply select all, source, and here you'll see generate getters and setters. So you're going to select all, and then where do you want to insert it after? We want to insert it after our previous get and set method height. Press OK. So now you'll see all these getters and setters generated for you. Okay, so now let's go back to our main class. So now I want to change. I have access to that class's person's variables, right? So now let's say I want to if I have access to those variables, right? How come where are the variables? If I have access to them, where are they? I don't see the variables here, right? How do we have access to them? We have access to those variables by methods, right? What are those methods? The get and set methods, right? So that's how an object can have an access to the instance variables by using the getter and setter method. So now we want to set, right? Let's set something. So I'm gonna set the name, and I'm gonna set it to Fahim, right? And now I want to get it, right? So I'm gonna say Fahim dot get name, right? But the thing is, I want to print it out. I want to print it out to the console. So I saw someone ask Mr. Mafi by that. She wasn't it wasn't printing out, right? So always make sure what your method is doing. So if your method isn't printing out, go back to that method and see if it has like a system.out there, or if it doesn't, right? If it doesn't, then you would need to use system.out in your main method. So you can system.out and put that inside the parentheses, and then it'll print out Fahim. Okay. So is encapsulation, is it simple now, right? It's pretty straightforward now, right? All right, good. Um, Let me just write notes about it. So how do you make them? Simply making them private. Then how can um it's usually the data type, right? So just all right. Let's talk about abstraction. All right. So yeah, please try to give during my time. Okay, so I'll give a break at 8:05. And then hopefully we finish abstraction before break. So once after break, we'll talk about Git, GitHub. All right. So I have like 30 minutes to finish abstraction. So okay. So what is abstraction? Do you guys know what is abstraction? What is in 2 words? Explain abstraction. So it's yeah. So it's implementation hiding. Right. Uh, so when you're dealing with abstraction, right? Um, what are you using when what are you using when you're dealing with abstraction? So when we're dealing with abstraction, we use. So what do you guys use? You guys use interfaces, right? Do you guys use concrete classes, right? Well, concrete classes like this almost used in everything, but I'm just still gonna leave it there. Abstract classes, right? Um, that's pretty much it, right? When we're dealing with abstraction, we use this, right? Um, yeah, we obviously have the main class. Main class is like by default, but everyone uses it. Um, abstract element implement. Yeah, we'll talk about that right now. So, we're okay. So now let's talk about the key important stuff. Can are can you instantiate interfaces? Can you put, yeah, you could put main method in your concrete class. So yeah, so the question was, can you instantiate interfaces? No. Can you instantiate abstract classes? Yes or no? The answer is no. You can't. So first of all, do you guys know what instantiating means? When you're instantiating class, do you guys know what that means? So it's very important you guys know what that means. So when you instantiate a class, that's basically the same thing as creating an object. So if I come here and if I say like right here, I'm saying I'm instantiating the person class. So right here, I'm instantiating the person class by creating a Fahim object, right? So that's what basically instantiating means, is you're basically creating an object. So am I, let's say if person was was an interface, I wouldn't be able to do this. It would give me an error. It would give me an error saying that you're not allowed to do this in an interface. If person was an abstract class, I would get an error as well. It would say you're not allowed to instantiate person class since it's abstract. But since person is a concrete class, right? This is a concrete class basically. I could instantiate it. And once again, as Nazmul said, you could also have your main method and your person class. So I could have my main method here, and it would be the same thing, right? So I could instantiate that inside the main method. Okay. What else do you gotta understand? Can you inherit multiple interfaces? Yes or no? Yes. Right? We'll go over all of these important stuff, key important stuff, in Eclipse. What else do you got to know? Um, can an interface have non-abstract methods? Answer is no. Right? You could only have abstract methods in an interface. Right? Can an abstract class have non-abstract methods? Right? So yes. So it's very important you guys know the difference between an interface and an abstract class. I'm assuming a lot of you guys answered yes because you probably got confused with an abstract class, and that's how you know. That's why you answered yes. So it's very important to understand the terms. Um, we'll talk about the inheritance. So basically, for an interface, this is multiple inheritance. You could only do that with interfaces, but when it's classes, you cannot, right? So um, let me just say here, what keyword implements, right? Okay. So can you instantiate interfaces? No. Can you create abstract classes? No. Can you inherit multiple interfaces? Yes. Can an interface have non-abstract methods? No. So honestly, no BS. Java questions, they're mainly going to test your knowledge on OOP concepts, and they test you right away on abstract classes and interfaces and polymorphism. Those are the three main stuff they test you on. So it's very important to understand uh, the ideas, right? So if I can think of any other stuff, I'll just add it right here. But let's go over the program now. Can we implement interface in abstract class? Yes, you can. We'll see an example of it right now. Okay, so I'm going to create a new package and I'm going to call it abstraction. Inside this, I'm going to have a main class. And here you can create an interface by simply clicking on interface, or you can you could create a class and then remove that class and change it to interface. But I want to show you guys how when you make new class, right? So let's call this class. So first of all, when you're doing abstraction, right? You want to do abstraction on something that makes sense, right? Something like, so I'm trying to think of an example, a good example here, right? So do you guys mind if I use the same example from Mr. Mafi, the car thingy, whatever? So do you guys want me to think of a different one? All right, so yeah, okay, so that's like probably the easiest one I could think of. Uh, instead, actually, let me do the Wright brothers, right? So let's call theirs, let's say the right plane, right? So is everyone familiar with the Wright brothers? Does anyone know who the Wright brothers are, right? So they basically invented the first aircraft, right? It was like made out of wood or something. I don't know. Excuse my language, sorry. Okay, so I'm gonna create a class called Wright plane. Okay, so I want this to be my interface, right? So what's wrong with it is declared as a class. So first, I want you guys to see the image right here, right? So it just shows a J. That's basically a Java class, right? If I were to say interface, and then I just save it, you'll see um, a purple ball and it's I, right? It shows I. That's basically an interface. So that's how you can create an interface. You could simply just right click new interface, or you could create a class and just remove the class and put interface. So what did we talk about interfaces, right? Can interfaces have non-abstract methods? What were you guys' answers? Can an interface have non-abstract methods? Yes or no? No, right? So if I were to say something like public void fly, right? And it says something like, so I can't even use system mouse shortcut here because it's an interface. So now it's not even letting me do that. So let me just system.out dot print ln, right? Fly. So it's giving me an error. So it says to to either change it to default static or remove the method body. Default static, you don't need to know about those stuff. We're not gonna for obviously static, you guys know what static methods are, right? You just create a class and then you're able to use the static methods. But there's no point of creating static methods in interfaces when you can create static methods in other classes. That's why you rarely see interfaces with static or default methods. So they're telling us to remove the method body, right? So if I remove the method body, what kind of method is this now? What kind of method did this turn into? This is an abstract method, right? But do you guys even see the keyword abstract there? How is this an abstract method if there's no if the abstract keyword is not there? So that's another thing you guys need to know about, right? Uh, so interface is implicitly abstract. That's basically saying that whenever you create an interface, it's already abstract. I could label it abstract right here, but I don't need to, right? It's already built in Java that all interfaces and the methods inside interfaces are abstract. So I could leave it like this. I don't need to, but Well, that's what it means when they're all implicitly abstract. So if this is implicitly abstract, what kind of method is this then? It's abstract method, right? But we just don't have the keyword here because the interface is already implicitly abstract. So let's just think of like certain methods, right? So fly, right? Fly is one abstract method, and let's do something else. Int passengers, right? And I could let's say it takes in passenger seat, right? Actually, let me just say pass. Okay, so you see here in this interface, I have two abstract methods, right? So now let's create another class, and I want to call this class, um, an advanced airplane, right? So it's definitely more advanced than a right plane, right? It's not gonna be made out of wood or anything. So I don't know what planes are made of. Are they made out of metal? So I could say metal plane or something. I'm just gonna say advanced then. All right. So I'll I'm gonna create a class called advanced plane, and inside this class, my goal is to define the advanced plane class, right, and have some abstract methods as well. So what kind of class is it going to be? Abstract, right? So you could check on this box right here that says abstract, or if you forgot to check it, right, you could just say abstract before class right here. Okay, so now we talked about inheritance, right? Um, Basically, if a class were to inherit from another class to obtain its properties and stuff, you would say extends, right? The thing is, we want to inherit right plane. So how do we inherit right plane? Right plane is not a class, it's an interface. So what do we have to do? What can we use? We could use implements, right? So remember, it's not implement, it's implements, right? You guys have to like I think yeah, the keywords extends and implements, they're plural or something. Yeah. So implements, and what are we implementing? We're implementing right plane. Okay. So now what if this wasn't an abstract class, right? It would give me an error, and it would either tell me to you add those unimplemented methods from right plane, or you make this class an abstract class, right? So you have to choose either one of this. So right here, I basically made advanced plane my concrete class, and if you want to make a concrete class, then you have to add the unimplemented methods. What are those unimplemented methods? These are these methods right here, the abstract methods that haven't been defined. That's what unimplemented means. If you want to implement a method, that means you're going to define the body. Unimplemented methods are basically methods that haven't been defined yet. So what's it telling me right here is saying you either need to add those unimplemented methods or you make the advanced plane abstract, right? But we want to make this an abstract class anyway, since we want to have abstract methods anyways, and as well as non-abstract methods. So we're just going to say abstract, right? And you see the error is gone because it either told us to add the unimplemented methods or make the class abstract, and we made our class abstract. So now here you could it's almost like a regular class, right? An abstract class is almost like a regular class, but it contains abstract methods, right? So what's the difference between an abstract class and a concrete class? That's a common interview question, right? The answer would be an abstract class contains abstract methods, while a concrete class cannot, right? So that's the simple answer. So am I allowed to create instance variables in this class? Yes or no? I can, right? I could say int number of engines, right? I could engines right here. Engines. Did I spell it right? Yeah, I did. Okay. So yeah, you could assign it. You could initialize it. I could say 3, right? You could initialize it. You could declare it. Initialize it. It's all up to you. You do whatever you want. But I want it to define. So I'm just showing you guys that you can declare and initialize variables, right? So now let's create an abstract method, right? So an advanced plane, an abstract method, I would say something like, let's think of something. Thinking of something is the hardest part of coding, just like to give an example of an idea. So let me just say, takeoff, right? So I have takeoff, right? That's an abstract method. So how do I make this an abstract method, right? I'm missing something, right? Here I could like just say public void and whatever, but in an abstract class, I'm gonna need to add the keyword abstract, right? So there you go. See, I have no error. So right here, this is an abstract method. Now let's create a non-abstract method, and I'm gonna say um, in flight, right? And always remove your empty spaces, right? So you would always want to have like a line at least. Okay, so now you guys can see the abstract class, right? So I can declare or initialize variables, right? I could I could create abstract methods, right? And I could also create non-abstract methods. But the thing is, if you don't have an abstract method, right? Is this still considered an abstract class, right? Is it yes or no? Is it still considered abstract class? It's still considered an abstract class, but it's pointless not creating abstract methods in an abstract class. So you might as well just, that's why Mr. Mafibai said that if you're creating an abstract class, you want to have at least one abstract method, right? It's pointless if you don't have any abstract methods. Otherwise, just change it to a concrete class and just implement the methods. So here we have variable declared, we have our abstract method, and now we have a non-abstract method. Non-abstract method is basically a concrete method, aka a regular method. So here is just it's a void return type, a void type, right? And it's just printing out to the console. Okay, so now let's create a concrete class. So I'm going to call this class Boeing, right? A Boeing is a type of airplane, right? Okay, so I want I want this to be my concrete class. We can't define abstract class, right? You could define an abstract class. You could even wait. I forgot to ask you guys. Can an abstract class have a constructor? Yes or no? The answer is yes. It could have a constructor. So you could say advanced plane. But once again, if you can't create an instance of an advanced plane, right? What's the purpose of a constructor? So it's really, I don't know why the Java programmers creators who created this language allowed this. I'm not sure what's the reasoning behind this. What's the purpose of you know creating a constructor if you can't create an instance of it? So it's literally pointless. It's really pointless creating a constructor. But just know that you're in an in an abstract class, you're allowed to create a constructor. Can I create a constructor in an interface? No, right? So you guys should know that. So let me write that down in my notes again. Okay. Constructor. And what was the answer? It was yes, right? Answer is no. Okay, so now we're talking about the concrete class, right? So basically, whenever you create interfaces or abstract classes, there has to be a class that will implement those methods somewhere in the programming lifecycle, right? So like just think of this almost as inheritance, right? So right plane is like the interface, right? And then advanced plane is also inheriting right plane and all those. It added its own abstract methods. So if there were any class that was using these interface and classes, it would have to define those methods somewhere else at some point in their in their life, right? So you can't have abstract class and interfaces without a concrete class. You must need a concrete class to define um, um, those unimplemented methods. So we're gonna say our Boeing class. That's gonna be our concrete class. And so what should I put here, right? So I want it to have the properties of right plane and advanced plane. So what should I put here? So if you look in advanced plane, this is an abstract class, but it's already implementing right plane, right? So do I have to say implements or do I have to say extends? So I can say extends, right? So I can say extends what? Advanced plane. And can I also put implements? Do I have to put implements here? Yes or no? Should I put implement right plane? The answer is no, right? Why is it no? Because it's already extending from advanced plane, and when you go in advanced plane class, it's already implementing right plane. That's why you don't need to say implements right plane here. It's already doing this. So what is this an example of from inheritance? It's basically multi-level, right? So you see it's like a transitive property, right? Boolean extends advanced plane, and then from here advanced plane implements right plane. So Boeing would have all these methods from these stuff. This is the interface and this is the class, right? So now we extended from advanced plane. We don't need to implement it to right plane because it's already implemented in advanced plane. So now what is the error? If you hover over Boeing, it's telling us to either add the unimplemented methods or you make Boeing abstract. So it's basically the same error that we are getting when we are in our advanced plane class. But the problem is we want this to be our concrete class. So if you want this to be our concrete class, right, you're gonna have to add those unimplemented methods. So instead of just gathering all these methods and copying paste it here, you could just hover over this and just click on add the unimplemented methods and it'll be easier. So it automatically generate it for you and all you have to do is just define them. So Ibrahim said, Fahim, do you know if it's possible to color the string text to the output? To color the string text, like I wish to have a specific text to have different color in the output. Just curious. So you want to have different so you want your keywords to have different colors. You want the basically the stuff that IntelliJ has, right? Let me see. So I think it's editor. No, it's not. Um, I think you need to go to. Oh no, it was. Okay, so I think it was Eclipse preferences. Some preferences from here. Appearance. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. Just wait 2 more weeks and we'll all get into IntelliJ. It'll save. I want like example if I want hello to be different color than world. Um so that's too advanced for us right now. So but the thing that's gonna take that's you're gonna have to use like a different API for that and stuff. So we can't do that right now. That's basically like the advanced Java. All right, so you could once you add the unimplemented methods, you could remove these stuff right here. So what was method overriding is basically overriding the methods, right? So that's why you get the overriding tag here, because you're overriding the abstract methods. So now we could define these methods, right? So let's say right here, I just say sys out, um, Boeing flies real high, right? And then I could say something like city is, let's say, like 2000. And then we could have takeoff. Okay, so basically I just defined the methods right here. And now let's go to our main class and let's create some objects, right? So let's create a Boeing object first. I'm gonna call this Boeing 747. So now you can see that Boeing 747, it has access to advanced plane, right? We didn't advanced plane, we had our non-abstract method, right? So what was the non-abstract method in advanced plane? It was this, right? But it was already implemented in advanced plane. We could that's why we could use that method there. So we could say in flight, but it's coming from advanced plane. If I run this, it would say the plane is on flight. I could also use methods from Boeing's class as well. Like for example, passengers, right? Just say 5, doesn't matter. Oh wait. Oh, okay, so it didn't take in anything. I could also say I could also say takeoff, right? So you see, I could access all these methods, right? Um, why can't I access the methods here in the interface? Is because I basically defined it here, right? I basically implemented those methods. If I Now let's say I want to override this method, right? So we learned polymorphism, we learned method overriding. So we could literally take this method and paste it right here, and we could say the plane is up in the sky, right, with the birds. So now you see here in advanced plane, it says the plane is on a flight, but it's the same name, right? And in Boeing, it's the same name as well, but the plane is up in the sky with the birds. So if I were to go to the main method, it would print. What would it print out if I said if I were to say in flight? So if I were to say in flight, it would print out this one, right? Because we overrode that method. The plane is up in the sky high with the birds. So does abstraction now make sense? It's almost like inheritance, but you have to implement the methods and stuff. And just know, as long as you guys understand the differences between uh, you know interfaces of abstract classes and concrete classes, then abstraction should be pretty simple for you guys. Any questions on abstraction? If not, I'll call it a break right now and we'll come back 10 minutes later. And then we'll start on GitHub and Git. Alright, so I'm going to put the break right now. So time. Alright, so it's 8:02. We'll be back 8. Is 8:15 alright? That's like a 13-minute break, right? Alright, so come back by 8:15. How do you access non-abstraction class in main class? Non-abstraction class? Do you mean the concrete class? If it's the concrete class, then you just create an object of the concrete class. You cannot create an object of the abstract class. Fahim, after we're done, can I get like 5 minutes from you about homework 3? Yeah, sure, no problem. Muhammad Ali, once again, you cannot create an object of an interface or an abstract class. So, but you can create you can create an object with that data type, but you'll be only limited to that uh, um, type's methods. Momin Uddin will be setting up Git after the break. Don't worry. Hello? You guys hear me? Alright, so now let's learn about Git, right? Git and GitHub. So it's very important you guys know these stuff. Basically, let's say you got hired and you're working with your company and you don't always work from, you don't always work when you're inside your company, you also work from your home, right? Or sometimes, uh, like outside of your company as well. So this is basically a version control system. So it allows you to up like you know the primary purpose of Git is to if you guys are working if you're working with a team, you guys all were working like in one big project, and each person is you know designed to work on some specific classes or whatnot. So instead of like emailing each other like, oh, okay, I done this, now you do this, or that would take forever, right? So that's what one main important of GitHub is. Allows it tracks down all changes. It gives you the updated change and whenever, right? So if I were to change something in their project, I mean I commit it and then is I commit it and push it to GitHub, then the people working with me, they're able to see that change, and they could work on theirs as well. So first of all, uh, let's let's start with Git. Um, we need Git in order to use GitHub. So first of all, does everyone have Git downloaded? Yes or no? Okay. So in the Dropbox, I made a guide as well, and it's in the what? There was a folder here. Are you serious? Yeah, the folder's there. What the hell? Or was it before? Okay. So there's a GitHub folder here. So inside this, I put the instructions here. So GitHub instructions, I put it yesterday. And if you click on that, it basically detail by detail. I tell you guys how to do this stuff, but we're gonna go over this right now. So I show you guys my console and see like what you guys are supposed to see and whatnot. So first of all, we need to download Git. If you don't have Git, you need to go to Google and just download Git, right? But for Windows, right, you would need to come here and download it. That's if you're using a Windows operating system. You could also download it in Mac, right? But the sole reason why people developers use Mac is because of Homebrew. Homebrew, it allows you to install stuff without worrying about setting stuff up and whatnot. So if you have a Mac, you would go to Homebrew, and it would be this link right here. And then what you want to do is you just copy and paste this into your terminal. So a Windows operating system, they have the CMD, right? The command prompt. And Mac, we use the terminal. So that's where you would go to download Git. So if you haven't done that already, do it right now. Oh, so does everyone have this downloaded so I can move on? If everyone has it downloaded, I'll move on. All right. So now we have Git downloaded, right? We need to learn some commands. So if everyone can open up their command prompt or terminal, open it up right now. So this is my terminal right here. So it's very important to understand these command prompts. That's why people in tech, they taught you guys CNSS, right? Specifically inside CNSS, you guys learned about Unix, right? You guys did a lab, I think, on Unix stuff. So it's very important that you guys know these stuff. If you guys are struggling with this, and then you're going to it's your first day at work and you're struggling with like how to go to a directory, then they could easily catch you and say and know that you bullshitted your way, right? So it's very important you understand how to work with your operating system and as well as Unix. So here I have I gave a link. So inside that link, it shows basic Unix commands, right? So basically, these are the essential Unix commands you guys should know, and it shows you the descriptions right here. So if you open up your terminal or command prompt, if you press ls, it basically lists the files in your current directory. So this is the files that are in my current directory right now. If anyone plays RuneScape, yeah, I play RuneScape. But these are my current directories right here. So I can see I have desktop, documents, clips, pictures, movies, music, all these stuff, right? If I want to go inside one of these directories, right, I would have to use the command cd. Cd, what does it mean? It means change directory. So after cd, I would have to put the directory name where I want to move to, right? So let's say I want to move to documents, right? So if I if I'm typing in documents, right? If I just type in doc, right? Are there any other files right here that start with doc besides documents? Yes or no? No, right? Documents is the only file that starts with a doc here. So instead of typing in documents like this, right? I could simply just type in doc and press tab in my keyboard, and it would automatically fill out the rest of the stuff for me. So it's very important you guys, uh, instead of writing the full name, just press tab. So like what if I had one file here and it was a pretty big file name, right? And if I were to spell that file name like precisely and stuff, and I miss one letter, it's not gonna change the directory there. So it's better if you use your tab key. So I want to go to documents, right? So this command is basically me going into the documents folder. So once I go into my documents folder, a good tip to use is to keep on using ls to see where you're at. So right now, if I want to see where I'm at, first of all, there's a command that shows you where the directory you're in. If you type in pwd, it shows where you're at. So pwd, it shows that I'm in users, Fahim, and I'm in documents, right? If I want to see what kind of files are inside the document, what would I do again? What command would I press? What command would I write down? I'd write down ls, right? I want to see the files in the current directory. So I press ls. You see I have these files right here inside my documents. So I have recordings. These are basically the mentoring recordings. I have Snagit, that's a recorder. And I have workspace, right? So workspace is where I have my Eclipse projects, right? So I would want to go there. So I'd say cd work. I'll just type in wo, or I could just type in w, press tab. It will automatically fill out workspace for me. I press enter, and right here you can see that I'm in workspace right now, right? So I press ls again to see what files I have in my workspace, and I have one Eclipse project, right? And it's called Java project. If I go to my Eclipse, you see here I only have one project, Java project. Let's say I were to create a new Java project. I call this something like Fahim, right? Inside this Fahim class, I'm just going to create a package real quick. And I'm just going to print out, just run it. Okay, so let me just close it, save. Okay, so if I were to, let's say I want to go back a directory, right? So how would I go back a directory? So here you see cd space dot dot, right? It basically says you move back one directory. So if I want to go back to that directory, the directory that was before this, I'll say cd dot dot. So right now I'm in documents, right? So if I press ls again, I see recording, snagging, and workspace again. Now I go back to workspace. Now I should, and if I come in workspace, I should see two files, right? I should see Java project and I should see the project that I just created. So you see the project Fahim and project Java project. So first of all, in order for you guys to push something to GitHub, you guys need to know where the source of your projects is located. So for Windows, I find it very annoying to find the source because it's like complicated and stuff. Mac is pretty easy to find right away. It's organized and stuff, but Windows is pretty complicated. So you guys need to know uh, where your workspace folder is. And if you guys can't find your workspace folder, you could just simply open up Eclipse. Okay, and then you could just say File, and then switch Workspace, right? And you can just click on Other. And right here, the one that's usually highlighted, this is basically saying where your workspace currently is right now. So you guys know that my workspace was in user Fahim documents workspace. So if you want to know where your workspace is, just click on this, and then once you know where it is, press cancel, right? So that's, if you can't find your workspace, that's where it probably is, and then you would need to go to your go to that path. You would follow that path and go to that folder. Josephine said that, is that how you get the mentoring projects? No, when I get the mentoring projects, when I end the session, it tells me to convert the session, to convert the session and turn it into an MP4 format. So Mohamed Uddin messaged me saying, can you repeat for Windows? So for Windows, basically, this is the same thing. What I'm doing right here is basically for Windows and Mac users. The only thing different is that Windows users, they need to download Git, right? Once again, you could come here and I tell you right here. So for Windows, you need to go to Git and download Git. And once you download it, it's gonna be called Git Bash, and you're gonna open Git Bash. And once you download it, you just follow the rest of the steps. Okay, so right now we know where the source of our project is, right? So now we want to push the project into Git. So the first thing, so Mominuddin said how to get the workspace folder. So you just simply open up Eclipse and then go to File and then go to Switch Workspace and then press Other, and it will show you where that files, where your workspace is usually saved. All right, so now we want to push our project into GitHub. So you guys need to understand the key steps. Okay, first of all, I forgot. If it's your first time using Git, you're gonna need to you will need to hold on. What's it called? All right, I didn't mention it here. I forgot. So I missed it. Well, if it's your first time, right, you're gonna need to I forgot what's the name is called, where you set your user and email. What was that command again? Let me see. Oh, it's probably right here. Yeah. So you need to config first. So I forgot to mention this in my instructions. So if it's your first time using Git, right, you would need to configure it first. So you're gonna say this. You're gonna follow the exact spelling like this, right? And you're gonna give yourself a username, and then you're gonna give yourself an email. The username email, It doesn't have to be related to GitHub. They're two different things. So this is just, so this basically is like whenever you make changes to your project and you want to see who made changes, it will show that show that username and that user email. So that's how you would know who made commits or whatever. Commits basically means changes. Okay, so you're gonna need to configure this first, right? Okay, so once we configured it, we need to initialize the project, right? So you would need to go to where your project is located at. So let's say I want to initialize Fahim, right? So here I could initialize it right from right here, or I could go inside the project first. So now I'm inside the project, right? It's called, my project is Fahim. I'm inside that project, and I press ls. I see a bin and source folder, right? I could just type in git init right here. I don't have to say git init project name because I'm already inside the project. I can just simply say git init. I press enter, and it says initialize empty git repository in workspace Fahim blah blah git. So you should get something like this once you initialize your project name. Or you could just follow how Mr. Mafi said. You could, before you head into your project, you could get in a project name and then change directory and project name. I find it easier just heading into the project first, and once inside your project, you could just get in it. Okay, so after you use get init, basically once you initialize it, right, you're gonna need to add all the files. So how do you add all the files? You're gonna say git add dot, right? So once I press enter, um, if it goes good, it shouldn't say anything back, right? So basically, this is a two-step process. Whenever you change your project and you want to push it again to GitHub, you would always need to do git add first and then commit it. So you don't need to initialize it again. You just need to add it and then commit it. That's if you were to modify your code, your project again after you submit it. So we'll talk about that later. Okay, so for what did we do so far, right? We found where our workspace was, where our projects was located. We go inside our project. We said git init, and then we said git add dot, right? So there's a space after git and add and dot. So after we do this, we want to commit it, right? So this would keep down. This basically keeps a track of all your changes, right? So we're gonna say M, and we're gonna put something inside these quotations. What you want to put inside the quotations is up to you, but you want to give it a memorable message that if you were to, like, mess up your project and you want to go back to a commit, right? So you would know what to go back to. So if it's your first time uploading, you could just say first commit, right? But if you, let's say, you changed a class, you added a new class called name inside your project, you would say added name class, something like that, right? It's honestly up to you. But since this is our first time uploading it to GitHub, we're just gonna say first commit, and then we're gonna press enter, and it should show something once you press enter. So it shows us this. It says 5 files changed, 45 insertions, right? If your project is big, it usually shows like a lot of stuff. We don't need to make remote. No, remote is after. Remote is after you did the git add and git commit, right? So now we want to use the remote. But before we use remote, we're gonna need to create a repository, right? So now you go back to your GitHub. So now we're gonna go back to our GitHub. So once you get into your GitHub, right, you're gonna need to get the URL in order to use the remote command. So you're gonna say start a project. Once you click a start a project, you're basically creating a new repository. And make sure you're in the right owner, right account. So this is my account. Now I'm gonna give it a repository name. And since my project is Fahim, right, I'm just gonna call it Fahim as a repository name, right? If your project was a calculator, you would want to say calculator. Like you want to give it an appropriate name. You want to give it a reasonable, appropriate, and consistent name. So I'm just gonna call it Fahim project. So your new repository will be created as Fahim project, right? Okay. Now I could add a description here if I want to, right? And here is whether you want this repository, you want it to be public or private. Private will cost a fee, it will cost you. Public is free, right? And here, if you want to create a README file, so whenever you install like an application or software app, you sometimes see a README file that has instructions and stuff. So you could create a README file if you want to, but we're gonna leave it unchecked. So right now I gave it a repository name and I'm going to create a repository. Once I create a repository, it shows me this, right? So here it tells you like what to do next, right? But we're basically we're using this, since this is we're creating a new repository, we're doing this, right? So far we did the init and add, right? And now we did the commit, and now we need to do the git remote add origin, right? So what you would need to do is you would copy and paste, no, just copy this URL right here, and then you go back to your command prompt or terminal, and what you're going to need to do here is basically say git remote add origin, right? And then you need to paste in your URL. Now before I hit enter, I want you guys to know that you couldn't name it anything else besides origin. That's basically the value that's holding in this URL. So I could say git remote add Fahim, right? And give this URL. But origin is commonly used because it's a term that we always remember. So if you're pushing something, right, you would need to call on that variable, which is our origin. So just use origin for now. So we're gonna say git remote add origin, and then we're gonna put in our URL. We got that URL because we created a repository. So now we're gonna press enter. So once you put enter, now you need to push it, right? Now you need to push your code into GitHub. So how do we push our code? We're gonna say git push origin master. So once you press enter, it's gonna tell you, if you had a lot of files, it would have taken some time to push it, but since we just had a main class inside that class, it was pretty easy. So it should be done. Sometimes it will ask you to enter your username and password for GitHub, and you would need to enter it in. So now let's go back to our repository, right? Where was our repository? It was right here. If I refreshed it, right, you can see that it's uploaded. And remember what we said in our git commit? We said first commit. So it's like it would say it right here. And if you were to change it, right, whatever was changed in that file, it would override this string. So right here, we just pushed our code and basically our first repository. Now, has everyone got up to that part now, right? So we basically just uploaded something to GitHub now. Now let's say we want to change something in our code, right? So let's say I go back to my Eclipse. All right, and now I'm gonna create a new class. I'm gonna call it like car or something. And I'm just declare some variables. Okay, so I just created a simple class right here. So I basically added something to my project, right? I basically it's different than the last project that I just uploaded to GitHub, right? What's the one that's in my repository right now? The one that's in my repository right now, it only has this, right? It doesn't have the car class. I just created the car class now. Now I basically want to uh upload this to GitHub again and make the changes. So what I would do is, let's say let me just cancel this out. So let's say you want to change it back, right? So you would open terminal again, and then you would have to go back to your where your project is. So once again, where am I at? It shows these directories, so I'm gonna go to documents, or I could, if I know what was in documents, right? So I could just type it in all in one setting. So I know after documents I have to go to workspace, right? So if I do ls, now I can go to Fahim, right? So now I'm inside my project, right? Um, Now I want to push this, right? So once again, it's a two-step process, right? So before you push, you're going to need to commit it. And how do you commit it? First, you need to add all the files first, and then say git commit. So we need to say git add dot again, and then we're going to say git commit m. And right here, what should I say? What's a good message to put here? Since I added, yeah, I could say second commit, or I could say added car class, right? So it's up to you. So I could say second commit, right? Now I press enter. So now it shows what this commit consisted of, right? So it says that I created a car class and a Java class, right? A car, right? So whatever changes you made, it'll show you what that commit had changes about. So now I need to do I need to do remote? Do I need to get remote again? No, I don't need to do that. I just need to push it. So I'm just gonna say git push origin master, and it's gonna say it's done, right? So now if I go back to my thing here and I press refresh, it's gonna show the files that I changed, and it's gonna say second commit. It was previously known as first commit, but since I updated it, right, and I had the message second commit, so whatever classes that I just made and whatever it affected, it would say second commit to that. So that's how you upload like a modified uh, code or something to GitHub. So does that make sense for everyone? So if you have a repository already on GitHub and you want to update it, you would just simply just go to your project again and then say git add. You need to add it and then commit it, and then you just need to push it. That's it. You don't need to you don't need to do you don't need to do git remote add origin. You don't need to do that. You just simply need to git add, git commit, and git push origin master. You don't need to initialize it either. It's already initialized. Okay, so we know how to push something. How about can we clone? Can we clone a repository, right? So everyone, can you just type in Mr. Mrahman53 in GitHub, right? Just type that in, and that's Mr. Mafi's GitHub. So let's say we want to clone a a project from Mr. Mafi, right? So what project should we clone? Let's go to repositories. These are his repositories right here. So these are all like advanced stuff, right? So just can you do you guys see Homer Project 5? Actually, let's do the Twilio one that he just went over. So it'll be probably page 2. Okay, it's not here. Let me see if it's in Dropbox. Because I think that was part of the homework. Told you to clone it. Oh no, you didn't say clone it, but oh, I think it's in the class notes. Yeah, it's in the class notes, definitely. All right. So this is the link, right? So we can copy and paste this link and see where this goes to. So I'm gonna paste this link in the chat right now, and I want everyone to go to that website right now. Okay, so let me know if everyone is in that website right now. Cloning, cloning a repository is important as well. All right. So here we basically want to, you know, clone Mr. Mafi's project here, and we want to download it into our PC, right? Instead of like downloading the zip and stuff and all that annoying stuff like zip file and all this stuff, you can just simply clone it, right? So how do you clone it? You just click on clone, and we're gonna copy it. And so press Control C or just right click copy. Right? Now you're gonna go back to your terminal. So let me just open terminal again. If you're in your project folder, you need to get out. You need to go to your you need to get out of that directory. You need to go to your workspace directory. So also another thing is if you want to clear everything here, just type in clear and everything's gone, right? So first of all, I want to see where I'm at. So I'm still in my I'm inside my project. I'm inside Fahim, right? That's my project name. So I would need to go back. Then I want to see where I'm at right now. So right now I'm at my workspace, right? It says I'm in my workspace. So that's where I want to clone Mr. Mafi's project into. So you need to be sure. You need to be the first thing you need to do is make sure you're in your appropriate um, destination, right? So we want to download our uh, we want to clone it inside workspace. Okay, so now what do you have to do? Simply just type in git clone and copy and paste that URL. So once you press enter, it's gonna say it's cloning and stuff. So now it's done, right? So if I go to my Eclipse, let me just open it again. When I press ls here, it should say that I have Fahim Java project and July 27 project 5 Twilio now. So just restart your Eclipse and it should be there. Okay, it's not here. I need to refresh something. File. So here in my console, it shows it's here, right? ls again, cd backpack. Okay, so let me go back there again. Okay, so for some reason it's not showing it up for me. Let me know if you guys see it in your Eclipse. Is it working for you guys? Only watched. Okay, so let me see if I can find it here. So let me just. So it was in my documents. Yeah, so it's in my workspace folder. So it's right here. I could see it, but I can't see it in Eclipse. Yeah, that's weird. So wait, so it worked for you guys. As long as it worked for you guys, it's not a problem for it. It works, right? So it's an issue from my end. So I'll fix on that later. So as long as it's working for you guys, that's good. All right. So that's basically how you clone and um, clone a repository. It's just you copy the URL, then go to your command prompt or terminal and just go to your destination where you want to save it and just say git clone and then the URL. So is that it? That's basically it for Git and GitHub. Those are like the primary things you guys need to know. So when Java is done, Mr. Mafi is gonna have a midterm from his GitHub, and you're gonna need to clone that, and then you answer it, and then you need to upload it to your GitHub. How to remove a repository from GitHub? So to remove a repository from GitHub, I think it's like this. So first you would go to your profile, and then I think you would click on your repositories. So let's say I want to delete this. So I click on this, and then I'll go on settings, and then from settings I'll go all the way down, and I'll say delete this repository. Then ask me for my name. Please type the name of the we'll ask you the name of the repository. Your name of the repository is Fahim project. I need to enter my password. There you go. That's how you delete it. Once again, in order to delete a repository, just go to your repositories and select what you want to delete. So I'm going to delete this one. And then you're going to go to settings, which is right here. And then go all the way down and delete this repository. And then you need to enter your project name, repository name, and it should be deleted. Any other questions? So it's 8:55. I don't think I'll have time to introduce if else and for while loops. So I guess I'll do that Thursday or whenever you guys want to learn about it. So anyone else have questions or concerns or doubts? Let me know. So is everyone understand? Does everyone understand OOP concepts? Are you guys like confident in it? Like, if you were to go to a Java interview right now and they would test you on object-oriented programming, would you guys like answer it confidently? All right, so I'm gonna give Ibrahim presenter, and we're gonna look at his code. All right, let me unmute you. Hold on. Give me a sec. It's not letting me. It's so annoying. Okay, got it. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, I've been working on the homework, and we
Mhm.
went through basically encapsulation in class, and
Yeah.
you introduced us as well.
Mhm.
So, like, I just wanna figure out something, like, in the main class, how if we create an object, then call on the object, basically. Here I'm saying fishes dot sharks.
Okay.
So, like, like it shows me all of the things that I don't want to show. Like, I wanna keep this private. Let me show you. Just if I go to fishes, basically what I did is I have all the methods that I got from the like interface,
Mhm.
and then down here I created a private class called shark, and within this shark class I created a bunch of methods like sharks are cold-blooded sharks, and
Yeah.
oxygen, and so on. So these are private, but then in order for me to access those in the main class, I had to create basically a bunch of objects of those methods in the private class. You see here?
Yeah.
So these are no longer basic, like these are not private, these are public. So every time I
Mhm.
go to my application and I say fishes dot, I don't want it to say all of these things. I only want it to say like fishes dot, shark. Does that make
The
sense?
water shark, those stuff, all those. Wait, go all the way top. Uh, Wait. When you
Yeah.
say dot, yeah. So those are all objects.
Yeah. In the fishes, it's basically all of these. Objects are created from methods within the private class.
Mm. All right. So you have. So if I were, if you go to fishes, right, and you say dot, you could access cold-blooded shark, right?
Yeah. Just down here it says cold-blooded shark dot cold-blooded shark. So object is accessing the method. But in order for me to access it like this, I had to create an object like here.
I think it's because of the constructor. The sharks. Wait, no. Sharks is a method, though. Okay, so sharks is a public method that
Yeah.
prints out all those stuff. So, wait, I think you could have called it inside the shark method. Can you, or it won't?
Um, uh, you mean how do
Like
you mean?
create an object inside shark method.
Shark like that?
Yeah, I
Oh, it
think
seems
that
to
would
work.
have. Yeah.
Let me try. Let me just. I guess I would have to put this at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't show now.
Okay. Yeah. So
Cold-blooded shark.
yeah. So you have to put it inside that method. So basically, when you create an object, you, outside of a method, you're basically creating a variable technically. But if you create it inside a method, you won't be able to see it.
Oh, that makes sense. Because I've been trying to figure it out, but I couldn't.
Uh, so yeah.
So
So that was it, right?
yeah, that was it. Thank you, Fahim.
Dude,
Thank
you
you, man.
show me your code, and I just see like a bunch of lines. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
good.
working on it.
That's cool. All right,
All right, thanks, man.
no problem. Anyone else have problems with their coding or issues, or would like some, or like to ask some questions? Feel free. All right, all right. That's it for tonight. Tomorrow will be. Wait, let me see who's mentoring tomorrow. I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, so I'm not gonna be in charge of the organizer. So, and whoever's in charge tomorrow, can you please record? So tomorrow is MD Hussein and Kahina. So they're mentoring Tuesday, and then we have Takar mentoring Wednesday, and I'll mentor Thursday, and then Mesbah Uddin mentoring Friday. So tomorrow, MD Hussein and Kahina, can you guys record? I have mentoring, but I need your help. Yeah, I'm gonna. I mean, I'll show up, but I'm gonna show up like pretty late, like 7:30 or something, not 6. Like, it'll be pretty late. Or maybe I can come at 7. It's up to me. I'll see tomorrow. But if anything, I'll be there, but I'll be there late. That's the only issue. So yeah. So just go over the mentoring tomorrow. Mentoring tomorrow is 6 o'clock, I think. Right. So if I go to for wait, so so Monday, Thursday, and Friday is from 6 to 9 p.m. Which one was? So which one? What is Tuesday and Wednesday? Oh, oh, right here. Oh, is it because of they have Selenium class during Tuesdays and Wednesdays? That's why it's late. Oh, oh, okay. So that makes sense. All right, I might be there. I'll see. I might come there like 7:30 or 8 o'clock. I don't know. Yeah, I might come there before or whatever. But is Kahina here? Oh yeah, she is. So, who wants to go first and second, basically? So just like if I'm there and I'm gonna be organizer, I'm gonna uh topic will be OOP concepts. The more times you guys see OOP concepts or like GitHub, the more you repeat it, the more it'll be easier to understand. So you guys got to keep on doing more examples. All right, so okay, so Kahina can go first. Kahina, when you start, right, can you'll see in the go to training control panel, there's gonna be a screen sharing tab, which is all the way in the top, and you just expand it, and you'll see a recording button, and you just click on that. And then once you're done recording, um, can you send me the converted file so I could upload it to YouTube and upload your guys' mentoring as well? All right, thank you. All right, so that's it for tonight. I'll see you guys tomorrow, probably in the session. All right, good night, guys. No problem.